Humans aren't born out of laying around on their asses. We're the dominant species. We built all this. We're powerful, and we're beautiful, and we're ready to build the next level of civilization in God's plan. If you love God and you want to build a pro-human future, you must become the victor. But you have to believe in yourself first. This is the truth, and everyone knows it.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we've seen ever since the 2024 Game Awards that a plethora of people, I call them mentally ill freaks, have oozed their way out of the woodwork to try to reinforce and affirm this anti-gamer, anti-consumer mindset, where if you're a gamer and you have a preference and you have an opinion and you're vocal about it, it's not just that you have a reasonable opinion to share. No. You're a gooner, you're an incel, you're this, you're that. I mean, the pejoratives are endless, and people are actually creating artwork to try to, quote-unquote, own the chuds. And here's the thing. The waters of unemployment are frigid, and we've seen a lot of ships going down. Concord, we've seen Firewalk Studios. I mean, everyone laid off. We've seen hundreds of people laid off with, X-Defiant. We've seen games come and go. Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League is ending. We've seen what the effect is of embracing this ideology, having the characters be uglier on purpose, and antagonizing the people that are supposed to be buying and playing your product. These freaks do not play your game. They do not care about your game. They're not looking for any sort of long-term commitment. They're not going to be a fan. They're not going to buy your collector's edition. They're not going to go out there and, talk to their friends in private about the game. They're not going to promote, oh yeah, you should definitely go play, Witcher 1 and 2. You should definitely go play this. Oh, this is my favorite part. This is, for them, a moment to quote-unquote own the chuds and nothing else. Which is why every time these freaks do this, I recall this same argument happening dozens of times over, and they're very vocal and very vociferous, and this is the way that it should be. And then the product comes out, and then the product fails, and then they're nowhere to be seen. So they did this with Star Wars, they did this with Star Trek, they've done this with He-Man, they've done this with just about everything, and the complaints and the critiques are the exact same. Oh, you don't like She-Ra? You don't like the fact that we made her into a 13-year-old boy from an actual woman? Oh, well, you're just a gooner. These perverted freaks are the most disgusting, putrid, bottom-feeding, subhuman pieces of shit on the planet. The most immediately repulsive, unctuous, low IQ freaks. And they have the gall and the audacity to come before you and shame you for your opinion, which is completely normal. Hey, I want to play a game, and I don't want the characters to look like they were beaten with an ugly stick. And there's no benefit to the game. There's no benefit to the consumer. Other than you pander to a bunch of mentally ill retards on the internet, it doesn't help your bottom line. It doesn't help your product. It does nothing for you. So with that out of the way, let's, oh, by the way, you should definitely subscribe to my channel. I don't usually plug this very much, but, we have fun over here, we have some fun. I post these on my community tab. It's a good time. Gillette, the best a man can get. We have other memes too. But yeah, there are hundreds of us now. And it's a ton of fun. Oh, I don't know if I can show one of them I posted. I created this one with AI, which I think looks better than the one in the... Oh, I can't show that one. YouTube would definitely demonetize me there. But yeah, you should definitely give me a subscribe. Have some fun in the comment section, And we also have fun in the community tabs. But anyway, let's get back to it. This is the video from Asmongold, and we're going to react to it right now.
Hi guys, it's me again, and today we're going to be talking about some drama. We're going to be discussing the new games that got announced at the Game Awards, and I watched the show. I thought it was great. I had a good time, but a lot of people didn't. And guess what? It's for the two main games that got announced there. The Witcher 4 and also Intergalactic. Now, both of these games, I think, had a lot of discourse surrounding them, and we're going to talk about that discourse. And we're also going to talk about what that discourse implies with people that have become increasingly against and at war with reality. And this, every single time that reality hits them in the face, there are a lot of Twitter threads about it because people are not happy. And guess what? If you spend all day on the internet, you usually have a distorted view of what the world looks like. And even to a certain extent, I'm sure so do I, but it seems like these people are even worse than I am. So anyway, let's go ahead and, at the beginning, I want to talk about one thing before we get into either of the games, actually. Let's talk about subjective opinions. So anybody cannot like or like a video game for whatever reason that they want. They don't have to justify this. They don't have to explain it. They don't have to debate it or argue it with anybody else. So if you do or you don't like any video game, you should never feel like you're obligated to defend that opinion or not, because it is your own subjective opinion and you have every right to it and nobody can take that away from you. So I just want to make that very clear, because there have been so many people talking about how, oh, well, this person shouldn't be having this opinion. You shouldn't be saying this. You shouldn't care about this. Well, guess what? Some people do. Too fucking bad. Anyway, let's talk about The Witcher 4. Now, The Witcher 4, well, The Witcher 3, one of the best-selling games in the last 10 years, had a male protagonist. The new game has a female protagonist. If you understand the story, which at least I kind of do, I understand at least enough of it to see why the new female protagonist is the one carrying on the story. Now, this, however, has caught a lot of people off guard, and it's frustrated a lot of people because I think that there has been a growing trend that people are observing of genres and different IPs that have had a male lead that's being replaced by a female lead. And I think also this is, again, it goes into my first point about people being at war with reality, because I've got to tell you guys, gender is a massive barrier with relatability.
So I didn't want to break the flow of that, because I felt that it was so completely important that you heard the whole thing. So that was like 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Everything that he said there was absolutely correct. It was fundamentally just on point. And the thing is, yes, it's absolutely true that gender is a barrier to entry. When I'm playing a game about fantasy, I do not want to play as a female character. Now, if you do, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I would never play a female toon in World of Warcraft, for example, but I know that some people do. And that's their choice, and I have no problem with their choice. But for me, if I'm going in a fantasy setting, I don't want to play as a female character. It's the bare minimum. I also don't want to play as a character that feels like they're a complete intrusion onto that own world. Unless that's part of the story. Like if it's an isekai, like the whole premise of the story is that you're a fish out of water, then I get that. I totally understand. There's no problem with that. But oftentimes what we get are games like Assassin's Creed Shadows these days, where you've got not just a sticking out like a sore thumb. You're a guy you're a black guy that's taller than everyone. You can't blend in. It's weird. You've got this funky hip hop music that's because we want to appeal to the urban market. It's like you have so many things about that's wrong. I have no interest. And when I critique it, the usual suspects, the brain-rotted, degenerate imbeciles, will say, no, it's just because you're racist or you want the game to pander to you. Well, yeah, they're asking me to buy it. Do you degenerate retards not understand that this whole thing is an ad, and your campaign of, if you don't like it, don't buy it, has led to the ruin of so many different studios? Because you freaks, you disgusting bottom-feeding scum, are not the audience? You're not. You're Twitter activists. You're people that post things to make yourself feel better about your worthless, empty, meaningless existence. And then after it fails, you go, oh, well, that must have been because the racist, toxic incels just are afraid of women. And then you move on. You don't give a shit about the jobs that you cost, the money that you threw down the drain, the art that you helped to deface and vandalize. No, because for you, it's just a political tool. For me, I look at it and go, damn, that was a desecration. That was something that was really nice, really fun, and you ruined it. Now, what I will say is I don't think that there's any good reason ever to intentionally make a character, especially a female character, ugly, unless it's part of the story. For example, this is a perfect opportunity to make an ugly character to make a point. Wormtongue is perfect. He's a clammy, pale, greasy, unctuous, gross. He's probably what I imagine a lot of the people that are commenting on this look like. You know, when they're like, actually, I imagine that this is what a lot of these Twitter people are like. And they're whispering in the ear of these devs that have been, you know, just poisoned over an extended period of time. But I look at this and I go, it's so incredibly basic and simple. There is no benefit to making a character less attractive. There's no benefit to making something less interesting or more ugly or any of that. It doesn't benefit anyone. Other than a couple freaks on Twitter that are going to forget that your game existed in a couple weeks if they can't continue to leech and latch on to it.
It just is. And that doesn't mean that that's the case with everybody. I'm sure there's going to be people that, can't understand abstract ideas, so they have to comment and say, that's not what I think. Well, that's nice. But I think that in a general sense it is. I think gender is a massive barrier to relatability. So if you take a character that people relate to and they can see themselves in, and you change its gender, you do fuck with a lot of people's vision of the game and of the story. I think that's just how it is. And you can disagree with that, but that doesn't mean that it's going to go away. I think it is very, very, very much the truth.
True.
And so a lot of people are unhappy about this. And they also thought that Ciri is uglier because if you compare her model in game for The Witcher 3, and then you look at The Witcher 4, she does look a bit older, and it's a CGI trailer, so there's a lot more detail put into it. It looks more realistic. Now, my personal opinion, I have actually personally dated a Polish girl with a big nose. So I think that she's fine.
Well, so I understand what you're saying, but imagine that he dated a Polish girl and she were completely Asmund, I want you to imagine you're dating a Polish girl and she's hot. Like, she doesn't have a hook nose, nothing. And then, inexplicably, one day, she shows up and she's got this big old schnoz. Big old hook nose. No reason, doesn't make sense, just sort of there. Introduced as the same person that you've come to know, the same person that you've known for a long time, but they've got this big honking schnoz. Now, doesn't mean that you would love them any less. Maybe not, but you would have questions, I would imagine. Like, what happened to your nose? Were you stung by a bee? Like, there are things that you would want to know about that. Why is this aesthetic so different? And if it's drastic enough, you may say to yourself, okay, well, this isn't what I signed up for. And so when it comes to this, I think that it's actually fairly simple. When you look at these two characters side by side, when you look at them, what it was and what it's become, I think that it's fairly clear. The character on the right looks like a fun fantasy character. The character on the left looks like something out of, Horizon Zero Dawn. It looks like a character that was intentionally designed. Like, look at the green in her eyes. Look at just the aesthetic of her. Everything in the new version looks objectively worse. So you can say, well, I dated a girl with a big nose, but she had a big nose when you started dating her. This would be like she looked like this. Like, imagine she looks like this, and then she shows up and she looks like this. You're like, what the hell happened to you? That's what people are asking. What the hell happened to you? And for that, the entire internet, Asman, comes at you and says, oh, you're just an incel. You're just a bigot. You're basically accuses you of all manner of impropriety and bad faith. And you're sitting here going, what do you mean? I'm just observing and noticing something and articulating that I don't like this new thing. I don't like the way that it was. I don't like the way it was presented. I don't like the fact that they did this, knowing full well that this wasn't going to be a popular decision, and decided to say F the audience anyway. The people that made them what they are. It's just such an obvious thing. There is a trend, and we see it all the time. And unfortunately, this is the representation. This is the manifestation. Doesn't always hit every note, but you have other countries that are able to figure out what is appealing to the audience. And apparently the West is going to die on the hill of, no, uglier is better. More grotesque is better. And I'm here to tell you it's not. And it never has been, and it never will be. And I don't understand why you feel the need to defend this huge corporation. I don't get it.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that everybody else does. If you think she's ugly, you don't want to play the game because of that, that's fine. Yeah. That's whatever. I personally don't think so, and I think that CD Projekt Red has earned a degree of my trust with how well they've handled Cyberpunk and also The Witcher 3.
Ooh, Asmund. Maybe it's because it took you 10 years to play Cyberpunk, but that game was released in a shocking state. Asmund, I don't know if you remember just how bad the release of Cyberpunk 2077 was, but I think you should do a video going back and looking. That was horrendous. And that didn't have anything to do with DEI or wokeness or anything else. That had to do with a company rushing out a game to market that was unplayable. That game was, I can't believe you said that, to be honest. Like, maybe he doesn't remember. Like, oh, Cyberpunk 2077, that was a great game. No. When that game came out, it wasn't like a week. There were months and months and months and months and months and months where the game was damn near unplayable. Like, it was shocking how bad that was. So, no, I don't think that CD Projekt Red has any goodwill left. I understand what he's saying. Witcher 3 was good. They used up all of that goodwill with Cyberpunk 2077. That was... I don't think Asmund remembers. Maybe because he played the game far enough after it had released where they had fixed enough of it. But I'm kind of shocked that he said that. Asmund, I would recommend that you go and you look up some of the reactions and responses to Cyberpunk 2077. In fact, one of the many reasons why so many people don't like Yong Yam is because he was glazing the asshole of the game, Cyberpunk 2077, and the state that it came out in was so bad that it actually hurt the reputation of people that were singing its praises and were excited for it by proxy. It was a neutron bomb. That game was a disaster at launch. That was So horrific. I remember that. That was devastating. Anyway.
That I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, and I'm going to really, really hope that the game is in fact actually good. So we'll have to wait until we see her in-game model and we see a little bit more of the story before I go ahead and start complaining and crying about this.
Well, I mean, you don't have to wait for anything. The devs are running damage control because they're trying to, well, let us explain to you how she can actually become a Witcher. So you already messed it up. The whole trailer is supposed to get you excited to play the game, and now, because that trailer was so bad, these devs are trying to run interference and trying to say, no, you don't understand. Here, watch this video of us talking about it to understand why the lore actually... No. I'm not going to watch a 15 or 20 minute video of you trying to tap dance around this. You had an opportunity with the trailer. You didn't have to tap dance and backtrack with the Witcher 3 trailer. The Witcher 3 trailer was awesome. But I'm not going to watch an additional trailer of you explaining your mistake. I'm just not.
All too much. So there's that. Now, the second thing I want to talk about is the growing issue with a lot of games that are adding characters that are unattractive, unappealing, and unlikable. And oftentimes it's all three, unfortunately, but many times it's in fact just one. And so what's happened is that I think that a lot of studios have fallen prey to this idea that players and people want to have realistic characters.
True.
I don't actually think that this is true. I think that this is a media narrative that's created by journalists and it's created by people that write about video games, talk about them.
Retards on
but
Twitter.
The truth is that I think most people, they actually do care about what a character looks like to an extent.
Yep.
And the people that don't care are irrelevant anyway. Because let's go ahead and use a little bit of logic. So why would you ever put a ugly character in a video game?
No reason.
Well, I think that this serves no one. I don't think it serves anybody. Because for all the people that don't care whether the character looks good or not, well, then those people are going to play or not play the game anyway. And
in fact, it's actually a net negative. Because what happens is you've got a bunch of disgusting freaks, a bunch of degenerate, barely human, perpetually online weirdos that are looking for an opportunity to shit on your audience for critiquing the aesthetics of a game. And so what this will do is this will actually drive people away because they'll say, yeah, I don't like the look of Ciri. And then they'll be inundated with all manner of insults and you're an incel and you're a racist. We went over this. But you'll be inundated with that. And do you think that makes you more likely to buy the game or less likely to buy the game? Very rarely do games succeed and do well after they've been met with that level of vitriol and backlash, because people will just say, I'm not putting my money towards a game that panders to these freaks.
And the reasoning for that is going to be completely independent of the character's appearance. And for the people that are going to play a game or do care about a character's appearance, and they use that as a criteria of whether they like the character or not. And by the way, a lot of people say that people don't do this. If people didn't do this, microtransaction cosmetics would not be making billions of dollars, okay? Like, this is just such a completely stupid, delusional thing to say. They would not be able to sell all these cosmetics if people did not care about how they looked in video games. So, that being said, and there's a million other examples I can use, like gacha games, etc. But I think that let's just look at cosmetics as a meta thing, and then that immediately proves that people do care.
That is completely
Maybe you
true.
don't, but again, abstract sample, there are many people who do. And for the people who do care, I do think that having a character that is unappealing, unlikable, or just in general not something that people want to see, that's just unrelatable. I think that's another really component. Not necessarily what people don't want to see, but just in one way or another unrelatable. I think this serves literally zero purpose. And in fact, all it does is it serves to hurt the game. So let me explain why. Again, so you have all the people who are, they don't care about the way the character looks. They don't give a shit about it. They're going to play the game based off of the gameplay.
True.
Well, they've already made their decision, and the way the character looks, stated by them, is that they don't care. So then you only have the remaining people who do care about how a character looks.
Right.
Now, do you think that more people care if a character is attractive or unattractive? Do you think that more people want a character inside of the group of people who care about the way a character looks? Are there more people inside of that group that want the character to be attractive or unattractive. Well,
Attractive,
I'm just going to
obviously.
take the wild guess and think that they probably should think that the character should be hot. That's it.
Yep.
And this is also true for guys as well. I don't really think that anybody wants to play, well, maybe some people do. Many people probably don't want to play a version of a fat neckbeard brony wearing a fedora with a My Little Pony t-shirt with cargo pants and socks and sandals on. And this guy is going to be the one who saves the
true.
world
That's
from
so true.
God, right? He's going to have to destroy God.
God, that's
Many
so
people
true.
probably would not really relate with that character, and they'd
No.
rather have somebody like Clive from Final Fantasy 16. And so this is true cross-gender, but it's also another big issue, what I was saying before, about people that are living in opposition to reality. A lot of people are in the mindset that these things are not relevant. These things do not matter. And again, they don't matter to a lot of people, but they matter to enough people for this to make a difference.
True.
And I also hear the narrative that these are things that are only held by a small minority of people. Only a small minority of people actually think this. And I have a challenge
That's
to everybody
nuts.
who thinks that. If you think that all of the people that dislike whatever game it is, whether I think the Intergalactic game is probably the one that's most worst received, I want you to find me a reveal trailer of a video game that has a less than 50% like ratio that turned out to be a success for a studio.
Damn.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
True.
Let's find out. And you know what? I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of them. I've looked for them. I've tried to find them, and I didn't see a single one.
Right.
And so what I
No,
think
it's
is
fair.
happening is that you have people that want to believe something so bad that it's caused them to distort reality into imagining that it's actually real.
True.
And so what's happened is that a lot of these people are so fixated around making sure that the game reinforces some worldview that they have that they are unwilling to look at the rational implications of what is actually something that players want to see.
Yeah, because they don't care, because they hate gamers. No, these people, they genuinely don't care. They look at the situation and they go, this is an opportunity to own the chuds, and that's the start and end of it. They're not going to backtrack or make apologies or do anything when the game fails and people are in the unemployment line. They're not going to do anything to change that. Even though they were, in part, a contribution to why this project failed. Because people are giving legitimate feedback, they're giving legitimate advice, and that advice is being met with mockery and ridicule and disdain. And that is a very, very bad way to conduct business. You conduct business by listening to the feedback and acting, in accordance with that. But if you're getting bad advice, if you're getting bad directions from people that are not part of your core customer group, that are advocating for something far different, they're not going to be there to catch you when you fall.
And this goes into the idea of genres. Now, I'm sorry, guys, but I guess I have to be the bearer of bad news. But if you're making a video game, and it's set in space, you're a bounty hunter, you've got guns, and you fight things with laser swords, the majority audience of that game is going to be a bunch of fucking guys. And
True.
that's it. So if you make a game like that, and you don't appeal to that target audience, you are going to have a
True.
very hard time selling that game. And it doesn't matter whether you think this should be true or not, or whether you know somebody who isn't part of that group, who is a girl or whatever, who likes these games, or a guy who doesn't like them. That's totally fine, but I think that the averages speak for themselves. You can look at games like Concord, Dragon Age Veilguard, or any of the other games that have come out recently that have tried to take a non-traditional approach in telling a story that is meant for a majority male audience. And I think that guess what happens? When that happens, well, a lot of people get frustrated, disappointed, and they think to themselves, you know what? I don't think this game's meant for me. I'm not going to play it.
Yeah, and games are more expensive than they've ever been. And after weeks or months of being ridiculed for having an opinion, you're just frustrated and you move on. You're like, you know what? If this is the audience they want to pander to, fine, let them. And that's what a lot of people do. And then they just tune out.
And that's what happens. And so I feel like how many points on a graph do you need to be able to draw a line?
True.
I think that it's very obvious that these things clearly do matter a lot to players, and this is not enough of a small minority for it not to be taken seriously. And also, I think that the implication is that a minority of people actually care about these things, whereas I think the actual reality is that a majority of people do. It's just that the amount of people that dislike it on social media might be a little bit higher, but it is more or less a respective sample size.
Yeah.
Because I've never really seen a case, as I said before, where a game was massively hated on, like the reveal trailer, and then it turned out to be a massive success. I just don't really think this happens. First impressions are really important, and it matters a lot if you make them or not. And so a lot of developers are trying to design games and make games for everybody. They're trying to make the game for the target audience of anybody can play this game. It's going to appeal to everyone. Well, unless you're playing Tetris or you're playing some other sort of abstract game like that, this is just simply not the case. There are going to be games that are more appealing to men versus games that are more appealing to women. The same as there's music that way, the same as there's, movies that way, manga that way. I mean, manga, they do it right. They literally have names for it. Shonen is literally made for young guys. So that's basically...
What is the name of the one for girls? They also have one for girls as well. Yeah, because they categorize it differently. Amazing, huh? What a novel concept. They have manga that appeal to girls and manga that appeal to guys. Crazy, huh?
The way that they handle it, and I think that they're doing a lot better than comic books now, last time I checked. So the big issue is that people are trying to design and create a narrative that is based off of a worldview that doesn't actually exist. And what's happening is that you see games like Intergalactic, and you see games like Concord or Dragon Age or whatever, where they are designed with this perspective that, well, anybody can relate to anybody. And of course this can be true to an extent, but it's not true on a law of averages. And I think that that's what's really happened, is that you have people that have convinced themselves and gaslighted themselves into thinking that the only way that you can make this game and make it successful is if you make it appeal to everybody, but in the case of appealing to everyone, you actually, in fact, appeal to no one at all, just like Concord did.
Yeah, I think part of that is true, that these people want to be liked, but they want to be liked by people within their group. Which is why they're so taken aback every time they do something obnoxious and ridiculous, and then it's met with derision and mockery. It's one of the reasons why these people constantly are searching for safe spaces. Places like Blue Sky, where you can be a pedo to your heart's content, with nobody calling you out, nobody making fun of your ridiculous worldview. They look for these safe spaces because they just want the affirmation for all of the bad things that they do without any pushback from normal, sane people living in reality.
Just a second, take a drink. So, what I think is going to happen is that these games are going to come out, the reception around them is going to become more negative, and the games will not sell well. And I think this has been proven time and time again. And ultimately, for all the people that like good gameplay, they're not going to care about this. That's totally fine. But I think that there are enough people out there that also, there's another component to this as well, is that when people view or they perceive some degree of like messaging or they perceive some degree of like social politics in a video game, it immediately takes them out of the immersive experience the game is trying to create, and it makes them think about the game in the context of real life contemporary social politics.
Right.
And I think this destroys the escapism, and it makes people more skeptical and less positive about these video games.
Everything you're saying is spot on.
And I think also this happens with movies and TV shows as well, but in a lot of cases it just happens with video games the most because that's what I talk about the most.
True.
But anyway, with a lot of these characters, anytime that I see a character that's added into a video game and the character is not attractive or the character is meant to be...
I think one of the reasons why it's different for video games is because a video game is not just an investment of your time like a TV show. No, I mean, sure, you're going to pay, $18 a month for Netflix. But Netflix has a lot of shows you're paying $18 a month for. So if you don't like a show, you can just watch another one. You watch another movie. A video game is a single-use form of entertainment that can cost upwards of $120 if you're playing an Ubisoft game. That is a huge financial investment. So it's not the case that you can just pick up a video game, pay $120, decide, you know what, I don't like this, and then just move on, because that's a huge investment. So gamers, I think, should be more wary of gaming adopting this, because it's a much bigger point of entry. And even if the game is free, it's still your time, and they're still going to be trying to lure you in with microtransactions and stuff like that. So I think gaming is different in that way, but his point is still valid.
Be unappealing to a majority of people. Or it's not, it's like doing one of those things where it's like, oh, well, all the people that don't like this are bigots or racists or something like that.
Or gooners. Apparently that's the word of the day. And it has been for a while. They did the same thing with She-Ra. Did the same thing with a lot of these things. These people are so low IQ and so immediately repulsive and just absolutely degenerate that their thought process is that the reason that you oppose this, the reason that you want attractive, characters, is because you're a gooner. Which basically means you're a pervert, which is ironic considering most of these people are just complete and total degens.
You can call people that all you want, but that's never going to convince them to buy your game.
True.
And I think that the people that do that, anytime I see that in a trailer, I automatically assume the game is going to be complete trash.
Absolutely.
And you think to yourself, what do you mean? Like, that just means the character's ugly. Like, who cares? What about the gameplay? Let me think about it like this. If making an ugly character, as we've already established, actually is at best a negative or a net zero effect, and in almost all cases a negative effect, why would anybody do that? And I think that the mindset of putting things into a game that players actively don't like, that is more important than the actual enjoyment of the customer, I think that mindset is going to permeate the entire game.
True.
I don't think that it's just going to begin and end at character selector or at character creation. I think it's going to be the entire game is going to have problems, because it is fundamentally at face value, literally at face value, not designed for an audience.
Absolutely.
And I feel like I've been right a lot. I do. I really feel like, so I see people getting mad about this, especially getting mad at me. I'm just saying, boys, let's wait and see. Let's see what happens. I wonder if the thing that's happened every single time is going to happen again.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I don't even know what to say. It's amazing. Yeah. I don't know. The suspense is killing me. I wonder if the game that everybody seems to hate is going to come out and be hated. And so people have been increasingly walling themselves off inside of their own echo chambers and trying to create their own reality. And I think this is the reason why people want censorship on social media a lot. The reason why is because these realities that they create are very, very fragile. And so the moment that one of these realities actually, butts up against an actual, the real world, real experience, well, then these people are going to be writing posts and talking and complaining about it and saying, oh, we'll do better next time. The reality is that a lot of people don't think that way. And I think that you've had the internet that's allowed so many people to effectively remove themselves from reality and construct their own in place of it. And I think that video game discourse is a very good microcosm of that. But you're seeing this with politics. You're seeing this with, like geopolitics. You're seeing it with social issues. You're seeing it with everything. And people have become increasingly more disconnected from reality because the internet has allowed them to do that. And
well, I also think it's another phenomenon entirely. I think that part of that is true. But these people were welcomed in because gaming is, by its very nature, a very inclusive group. These are people that were ostracized in high school. They were mocked and vilified for liking games, liking nerd culture. So when these people said, hey, can I play? They were more than happy to let them in. Unfortunately, what happened was, it would be like if Asmongold invited me over, and I came to his house, and all of a sudden I'm like, you know what? This is unacceptable. The state of this room is unacceptable. I'm going to hire a group of cleaning ladies to come clean this room. And Asmon's like, no, you're not. No, there's no way. And I'm like, okay, come in here, ladies. And they just start getting here and cleaning. And Asmon's like, I need to call the cops or something. I need to do something because this is not okay. And he calls the cops, and the cops just laugh at him. They're like, oh, what are you, a loser? You're getting your room cleaned for free. So now something's happening that he doesn't want to happen, that he didn't agree to. He invited me over, but I overstepped my bounds by trying to change everything into something that the original content was never intended to be. Asmon's house is the way that he wants it. Now, sure, he may like to clean things up, but hiring in a bunch of cleaning ladies, and having them touch all the stuff and clean all the stuff and throw away things that may be cherished to him. Oh no, we must clean, Mr. Zach. We must clean. It's like there may be a stain on the wall that he particularly likes, and they'll bleach it. It'll be gone. He may have a dead rat in the corner that's his friend. They're gonna put it in a garbage bag. They're gonna put on their hazmat suit and get rid of it. My point is that Zach inviting me over, just like the way that the gaming community invited these people in, does not give them a free license to change everything on their whim, and that's exactly what they did. They came in, they said, this is unacceptable, this has to change to accommodate me, and they've been doing it ever since, and gamers have been too polite, too reserved. They've been too accommodating for too long. And unfortunately, that's where we're at.
It actually does a really good job at that. And so what I think is going to keep happening is that these people will continue butting up against reality and becoming very, very frustrated and upset. And I think it's very funny because I also believe they will never learn. No. But anyway, guys, those are my thoughts. I think
Great video from Asmongold. That's tremendous. I think that was important for you all to see. I know it was a bit of a longer video, but I think that it is absolutely crucial. And Asmongold is one of the few content creators that's actually talking about this and being incredibly based. You're never going to see a video like that from Moist Critical or Ludwig or, even people like Soda Pop or Powder Software. They're never going to do anything like that. They're never going to have the balls to make a video like that. And it's unfortunate because gamers are basically on their own for the most part. There are very few content creators that have their back, and most everyone, including Angry Joe, Hassan, The Actman, Alana Pierce, Sophie Narwitz, or whatever the hell her name is, so many different people take the opportunity to absolutely disparage and shit on gamers because they have an opinion that they don't like. And so I'm here to tell you, once again, that there's nothing wrong with your opinion. You are in the right. You are correct on this. And you should be more vocal, be more vociferous. And then when this game, or these games, go tits up, or they don't do as well, you screenshot these posts, and you send it back to them, and you tell them to go after themselves. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that'll do it for today's video. I appreciate you watching. Appreciate you supporting the channel, and I'll see you next time.